Hello. Hello. Currently, we have Australia pulled up here. This is Australia. It's divided up. Got South Australia, Northern Territory, Western Australia, and Queensland. We don't need to talk about New South Wales down here right now, or Australian Capital Territory. It's been a few days since the last time I streamed, so I'm not really expecting a whole lot of fire to have to catch up to. Mainly just Northern Peninsula and Queensland. We're here in Western Australia here as well. There's been a near several fires that have burned around of northwestern Western Australia. Now you see, the drought is not as severe right now in Australia. There are still fires, but we're just looking at the drought right now. Australia had some precipitation, some of the parts of Western Australia, Queensland. See that by its drought intensity, by its anomaly. You can see there's a lot of fluid movement when it comes to moisture, soil. Western Australia right now is looking like it will be fire season for Western Australia up here in Queensland. Besides that, might see some spotty fires right here, but much of Australia right now is seeing a lot of resurgence in moisture. There was a pretty bad fire down here that was southeast of Perth. And it looks like rain and fire department will keep control of that fire until it was extinguished. Now they have a lot of rain, or at least precipitation. Any rain, ranking it in, especially Northern Territory in these rocky areas. This was Alice Springs right here, being threatened by a number of fires. Up here, South Australia, seeing a number of fires that were bushfires that were burning northern part of Western Australia, Southern Australia, and that's really all to that. Been a few days. Now just looking at it, real what you like to see. Especially Queensland area. I recall the fires that were burning were right here. Not the whole circle, just little fires here and there. But nothing too dramatic. Brazil, on the other hand, that's going to take up more time. Brazil and Bolivia, especially Bolivia. Bolivia has been burning for weeks now. I've been covering these wildfires in Bolivia. And Bolivia is smack dab. Let's say that this angle right here, this is the Andes Mountain. And on the other side of Bolivia, you have, don't know why I didn't have it pulled up yet. Getting too ahead of myself. Because we're still looking at Australia, even though that there is some world-shattering news coming out of the Amazon rainforest. But look at Australia. just make it more of an effort to be consistent in covering these fires, especially in Australia because it is currently fire season for Australia now. Then on Brazil. We looked at previously Brazil and wildfires and explosion of just the past 4 to 8 weeks of fires that have just been burning a tremendous amount of fuel, but they just gather a lot of fuel and burn it a little bit and then come back and burn it a little bit, burn everything. And talking Bolivia, like talking massive that are being exposed, local ecology exposed, fire, smoke, makes everything sick. Anything that isn't healthy enough to stand up and run, be taken by the fire. It's especially upsetting, disappointing because this is the Amazon rainforest. After this, there is huge rainforest. The fires that are coming out of. So, keep talking about it. Let me just. This is nature.com. This is an article from 14th of November 2023. The Amazon's record-setting drought. How bad will it be? Scientists tell Nature why the rainforest has dried out and what to expect in the coming months. This is not of a dried up river in any country that you would think, you would believe. Staggering desperation. Not silent desperation. A lot of pleading, imploring. There's a lot of requests for help, but these just look like sand dunes now with just a little bit of water. This looks like the Dnipro River after the dams were blown up from Russian forces in Ukraine. This is a person right here. Don't know if they were trying to have this test their how deep it is, what's left. You never think to prepare yourself for an image as shocking as the Amazon River being dried up. And this is from the 14th. Continue. Rivers that cut through the Amazon rainforest are falling to their lowest levels on record, and those records have been kept for 120 years. The last month, a portion of the Negro River in the Amazon rainforest near Manaus, Brazil, shrank to a depth of just 12.7 meters, lowest level in 120 years when it began. In Lake Teffi, about 500 kilometers west, more than 150 river dolphins were found dead, not because of low water levels, but probably because the lake had reached temperatures close to 40 C. Every 1.5 Celsius, degrees Celsius, 4.7 degrees Fahrenheit. You're like, that's just at 1 degree Celsius. No, it's already over 30 degrees Fahrenheit for an average, which all of it global heat average. Ocean, which is seeing an eruption, explosion of marine life, death, especially Alaskan snow crabs. I don't know what else to say about anything else that if people care so much to eat them. They want to continue to be alive, these sea bugs. You go to a restaurant that microwave cares. These dolphins boiled alive in a lake. There is an alarming escalation of river dolphin related deaths around the world, not just in Brazil, because all water, especially all gulfs around the world, are experiencing record level temperature. Almost every gulf, except I believe the Gulf of Maine, is the only exception. That's just because of its current situation where the currents, say here's Florida right here, currents that come up around, come up around, come up around, and the Gulf of Maine just sits here looking cold. It's probably the coolest Gulf on record. When you put in every other Gulf around the world, it's quite shocking. I have ways to look back at Gulf temperatures, not within the last 20 years. It doesn't matter because there's no water to measure temperature anymore. So it's an alarming anomaly. You can no longer measure the water. But rivers, water comes and goes for rivers. They turn to sand beds. The water still's underneath. This is different. This isn't normal. If there might be a lot of dams that are building up a lot of toxic residue in the area. These symptoms of the unprecedented drought gripping the Amazon rainforest this year. Climate change is involved. The researchers who study the rainforest and other factors have come together to exacerbate this crisis, which has cut river communities off from supplies, including food, and has forced indigenous residents to use dirty, contaminated water, resulting in gastrointestinal and other illnesses. This is an image of a river dolphin that was found dead out of 150 that were found dead. And when it comes to marine life, you're seeing marine life wash up. You see 150 animals, times that by 30. Let's say there's over 10,000 of these species of dolphin that are living in these river systems. These clever looking guys, you know. They're sick too. What burns and turns to ash, turns to dust. Eventually, it's going to find its way dripping into every river system, making the river system's toxic, just outside of pollution, not even just going to animal river conflicts. This is far more pressing. While we could be looking at bushfires in Australia, I don't think drought's there, but happily it's not as severe as it was earlier in their fire season. There are some fires that are burning in Queensland and Western Australia, but nothing that's really standing out the most. And it's just daylight. You can't see the wildfires and you can't see the smoke during the nighttime. So until the satellite imagery returns daytime, like so, then we're able to see their detail instead of just looking at last night. Like this. This is a little wildfire right here, a little bushfire. See that? You can't see it at night. But it's this little track here. It is very tiny. Clouds go overhead. I roll it back so you can see not a lot of burns. Look very dangerous, very daunting. Not on them. Got some fires that are burning here, here, here. Couple burning here. This is in northern peninsula of Queensland. And this smoke just gets recycling, just keeps getting recycled through the Gulf of Carpentaria. So you're not getting new air, it's just recycling smoke. It gets taken back into the ecology. This shows up here. This is a pretty wild looking scar here, burn scar. So let's say 120 kilometers. It's not a fire that burns all 120 kilometers at one day. Be here, next day it burns up to here, next day it's like this amount, and fire drops over here, burns this area, runs rampant with fuel, burns the rest. It's never just all at once. In Australia, you gotta look at it over days. These fires are large and lumbering sometimes. There's not always a lot of bush smoke associated with them. Sometimes they're quick burning fires, but right even here. See this fire right here? Smoke. Fire would be about right here. You just see that smoke. It's being chugged out, but nothing too alarming, nothing too serious. There's some bush fires that are burning, but they're not burning near any structures. Looking manageable right now in Australia. Good, but there's right here in the Western Australia part, south of Carafa, there are all fires that burned within this fire season. So it's not that Western Australia has been clear of fires. They're just spotty. But eventually, they have one fire that connects to what was left of this fire from before. Creates a port bridge of smoke, allows the fire to burn, depending on which way the smoke is traveling. But let's say the smoke is traveling northeast. It's sharing between these two. Smoke is sticky and it's going to pull itself together like this. You'll start seeing these shifting smoky signals that'll be somebody's waving like a fire stick wand. Sparkler, that's it. Yep. So, it really looks to be relatively managed. This is the morning. This is all like within the last hour. These are all 10-minute increments. These images that I roll back on. Anywhere else trying to use Australia, like besides Zoom Earth, is I love Zoom Earth. Makes looking at Australia very easy. We see how the transit over to so this is complicated. It's a lot of landlocked states that are seeing a lot of fire. It's landlocked in between the Andes and the Amazon rainforest. There's Dunya, Bolivia here, San Cruz de la Sierra, Bamba. a lot of cloud coverage, but there is smoke. Subtle. There are fires burning there. Take a better look at these images, but if you ever want to find a wildfire in an area that's experiencing drought, follow the river, find a fire, because these see we have here, this is why I need to go over this just for a moment. When you have a river system that's dried out and the water is so much lower than it normally would be, because heat and moisture is driven out by heat, and fire drives out moisture, and water rips it out of the table, rips it out of the moisture rich soil that it normally would be. So the whole ecology is just torched. Not to say destroyed. Let's say that you have here, the water is at a much lower height than it normally would be. So the fire is coming, let's say, from the north and it's heading south because the wind is blowing it that way. So let's say it's blowing south, southwest, southeast, depending on which way you're looking. But let's say it's blowing south Paraguay. Now you get into these river systems and these channels, these ditches, you're going to have the fire already knowing that it's not going down there. You're going to see the fire make a loop of momentum, because in these areas where there's valleys and ditches and channels and river systems that have no water or very little water, you're going to get these vortexes, wind and air, that's going to, before this fire gets any closer, it's going to keep getting pushed back up. Keep getting pushed back up. It's not going to go in the water and extinguish itself. Fire is complex. It's not going to go anywhere it doesn't want. Smoke is the only thing that can't be moved by it, so it doesn't move its own. And it just transits. Smoke also can be carrying a lot of other particulates. Particulates that are still very hot, that could be over 700 degrees Fahrenheit. And as the smoke builds up, as it burns, all the grasses and vegetation that is now revealed due to the water levels dropping to record levels, it would reveal a record amount of river vegetation. See, we have this coming up here. And this is our smoke here. See up here, this is our, call it a thermal ceiling, where the smoke, even no matter what of its heat, it's hitting a ceiling and it's rolling to a certain direction. And smoke, when it gets going, it's just gone. It just keeps going that direction. Until something stops it. Build water cannons, you have a number of ways to control smoke. But there's no controlling smoke in river systems. You can't bring heavy machinery. You can't do a lot of different operations in these delicate ecosystems that you would normally in the middle of nowhere, Australia, where you just want to make sure the fires don't burn 100 kilometers a day of the city. So now that we have this smoke plume on the other side of the river system, even though there's water in the river, for this example, it's still being hit by winds that are hitting it west. Right here is the Yep, that's a little too high up there. So dropping all of the hot elements on the other side, and then you get a fire that burns on the other side of the river. The fire doesn't have to cross over, continue its life cycle. It only has to get as far in as possible for their whatever fuel, burn it, and have smoke. Smoke hits the thermal inversion, drops a whole bunch of little particulates on the other side that are blazing hot. That's when you get fires that look like they can cross rivers, and that's when you get fires that keep looking like this. Keep looking like this. You get these strange union symbol. Bring this back up here. Now, as for which state in Bolivia is the one that is currently burning the most? Bolivia is right here. There's Rodania further north. We're looking for Trinidad. There it is. Trinidad. That's Santa Ana. Trinidad is right here. There are fires here. There are fires. But, you know, before we look even further into fires for Bolivia, let's go take a look. It's drought intensity. Roll on over and, yeah, that's pretty extreme. Most of Brazil, most of Bolivia is seeing extreme levels of drought that have never been recorded in 121 years. Not saying that deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon dropped between January and July this year by 42.5%. Not good enough. It's not going to matter. Because even if you agree that too much damage is being done to what is important to the world, even the world needs healthy wetland, scrubland. Alright, so El Nino climate pattern begun this year. Northern and northeast Brazil, 8 states have had the lowest July to September precipitation levels in 40 years. These months are the peak of the fire season in most of the Amazon. It's July to September. Just a pattern. Yeah, so exciting extreme droughts with industry, because in industry, steel mills and all that stuff, you build them on a river system so you can just have all of it go into the water. Everything. I've worked in steel plants that do this. It is absolutely horrible. So El Nino will persist at least until the end of the year. Could occur if the sea surface temperature in the tropical Pacific reaches 2.5 degrees Celsius higher than average, which is a possibility since it's 0.7 right now. So Bolivia is seeing astonishing levels of drought, and it's hasn't been measured this before. All these areas here, all these rivers. quick look at Australia, just to cool down from that drought that we see currently. Australia isn't as severe as it is in Brazil. I don't think anywhere is on the face of the planet. It is the worst drought on the planet on record since records have been taken. You have little crocodiles taking down all sorts of game to be healthy. Vibrant, healthy areas, these animals don't need our help. Still, it's a consequences of what we do. Currently, right now, I'm about to get out of Australia because I'm not seeing any crucial fires. Mainly just the usual spot fires, bush fires, some bush smoke, but not a lot of bush. Just wanted to go up here into the northern area of Queensland, where the fires looked like they were burning the peninsula. About what I expected to see. Here, fire here, fire here, fire here, fire here, and smoke billowing south and east. It's a big fire. Let's measure it. 7 kilometers by a road. This smoke up here, up in these hilly areas. You follow the river. Find fire, you follow the river in times of drought. Because all along, not saying potentially, but probably, something like this. Fire just continues to roll and roll and roll. And that's when you get these patterns that look like unions, smiley faces. It's completely natural, and it's due to wind coming in at a different angle, hitting the fires, and it is. It's going to be a counterclockwise rotation as the fire gets into these ditches and valleys, rivers. So you start seeing more and more fires that build up something that explodes in activity. It's not normal, these kind of fires. Since these river channels are seeing record drought in Bolivia, record drought in the Amazon, Brazil. You hear this is massive. The huge fire in Brazil. Take a closer look at it. You just, how much is burning? All that's going to expand. Go from what this looked like already before to fire. 4 on the second, dates about top right side here. These fires happen quick. Very alarming. Let's go up a little bit higher up. We can get all of this. Okay, so we can see fire into the picture on the east side. Looks like just a hot box. Burns it. Another box here. Here. wind that hits it against everything, and the fire races around in a few short days. Here's some fire on the 2nd, on the 17th. These fires are unbelievable, but they're there and they got plenty of fuel to burn. No water. How are you going to put out? You don't have water tenders here. Drought is so severe. See, this is a river on fire. Maiden Springs Road, I'd imagine this is from Maiden Spring, but this whole river system here. This is all on fire. This is a river. This is the actual river system. I haven't seen the riverbed itself ever on fire. This is a huge, massive blaze. Where does it end? Out some little spots of smoke and fire, but nothing like in the southwest over here. This is all burned land. 26 kilometers by 46 kilometers. This is a massive fire, and there's fires all around. Massive fire here, massive fire there. There are conglomerations of fires that are meeting, that are just exchanging fuel. So it looks like these fires just start in November, which off season. But we come back over here to this river that's literally on fire. You're going to see some very strong fires along river channels that can experience an extreme drought. You're going to see extreme fire activity that drives away moisture and water, evaporates it, causes it to just try to get away before it very disastrous mashup. We're still looking in Queensland. I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought the other map I had pulled up. Okay, Pando. Yeah. Let's see, where's that was everything else was Australia. These are smoke. Change over to false color. As I can get an idea of where the fire might be. And to apartment. You can see the fires, they're quite numerous, quite all over the place, but they're hidden by smoke, obscured by cloud coverage, as well as the chaos that it creates. This could be very upsetting. I see these thin wisps of smoke. I don't see the presence of fire because it's so obscured. Don't want to have to keep relying on the false color, but let's get us closer. Oh, this is the panel department. Ah, there. That's more like the fire that we see. These fires get a better idea of visually just how this fire just travels everywhere, grows, has massive amounts of resources and fuels at its disposal, on top of being difficult to reach. Area. See how it jumps over here, burning on multiple fronts. Still Bolivia right here. Not only is a heat wave with boiling sea creatures alive, seeing a lot of alarming number of fires that are. Just look at the intensity of this fire brightness, right in between the lines. It is insanely hot. This ground is moldering. This isn't just a wildfire. This is something beyond wildfire because it really has enough resources and fuel in drought conditions to become some of the largest wildfires on the planet that ever existed. We looked at the drought. Drought is Bolivia to Brazil, Paraguay. It is very much so spread throughout the entire southern, southern South America, Central South America, South, extended east out of Brazil. Some of these fires that we are looking at like this, they might look like a pretty big fire already because this here fuel burns. Will connect these two fires, causing a new front to come up, chew this land out. do this out, and this part continues to burn out. It's not burning in one direction. That's why I say it's like thinking about this as a wildfire. It's not the same because this is burning up, outwards, and expanding. One of those is expanding in itself. So you get this fire that comes up like this, that gets wind whipped to drive like a nail through ecology, and you have ketchup. You have all of this radius. It can go anywhere. You start seeing these patterns of fire and smoke that are in one of the only places, the most unique places on the planet. I don't know what else to say. We are past the point of caring more. It used to be the same level met of a natural state. Let's say there's a rock formation that's formed in a state, and people go and demolish it. Those people facing charges going on here in Brazil. Here, just absolute nightmares of just being on the run from wildfires recently. And you see this, and it's like it's not just a mountain burning; all of the grounds are fire, or the summit, all the way. These kind of fires are extreme, relying on a lot of drought. But also, it's taking advantage of that hill slope. So already here, you can see a number of smaller fires are already all over the place, and that's going to bridge that gap to that burning fire there. Wrap all this in, and it's burned. These aren't controlled settings. They're wild. These are outer land, not something should be happening, but it is, and it's the first time 121 years that drought's ever been recorded to be this severe. You can see the fire whipping around every individual fire. That's why you can't name these fires, because it's the whole cohesive conflagration, conglomeration is massive. Some of these fires look be very intense. Nothing special about this filter that I'm using. It's just making it easier to find burnt land. Goes here in this. See that smoke here? Ah, there they are. Man, this wildfire is burning right now. On our river system, you can see how fire behaves on a river system to take advantage fully. absolute destruction. So for these river systems too, that you'll get these debris dikes or debris dams, more like it. You get a lot of soot, a lot of ash. It gets built up over time. It becomes a mini dam structure that blocks the water from flowing. Not more restricts from the water from flowing, not directly blocks it, but it's just this giant mound of burnt residue that just meets it, and just balls itself up, just stays in like a lump. The river can't move it anymore. Water flow chokes and strangles us out. These are some of the most important river systems on the planet. Looking at them burning. Fires aren't burning far from each other either. 72 kilometers. And where you see its plume, you should associate that with where the fire can travel to next. So, with heat domes sitting over this land, it's making the conditions for further fire outbreaks continue by making it hotter, by pulling a blanket directly over the fire. Fire is going to take the path of least resistance, continue to smoke. And you see all these dozens of fires that are burning all throughout. And these pictures are just from today, last 24 hours. So we can see live images of it, but it's heavily relying on fires are just the obscurity by cloud coverage. But you can tell, I can tell where the smoke's at. I can see smoke. That's usually the first indicator, but you don't expect to zoom in on parts of the Amazon rainforest and see a fire like this that's chewing up the entire river system. It's like if you see the river, here's this river here, meets a whole bunch of fire here, right here. These were rivers here, there and now, but you see where the water was touching before. Oh, it's all gonna burn now. Have a generation of trees, know how to climb trees, doesn't know how to look at trees and branch. This is terrifying amount of fire that's happening. It's so abrupt in its activity. See, here's the 19th, all the way to the 8th, the 18th. Fires have been burning for weeks, no end in sight, and the smoke is making everyone sick and everything around it sick, causing a pestilence. Ash, fire, reduced to local ecology. Fire is natural, yeah, but always a good thing. Especially with drought-stricken local ecology like Brazil, Bolivia, fires are burning all over the place. And it's not just spot fires, it's not named fires, you don't see any of that. True blazes. They are everywhere. Spot fires all over the place. They don't know where it's going to be this time next year, but here, see, wicked looking. I want to say these are fires burning here. Can't confirm. These endless. Some pretty impressive fires already. So, right there. Real intense. Look at the time lapses. 30th, there was a fire. 4th looks like there's some, but 14th is not until can't quite see it. Hard to make out. There. Record fires, record drought, record every record that you don't want to break. You can see the drought here in these rivers. River channels, this is all cutting in sand, bars and stuff like this. Massive drought that can be seen in so many different ways. As well as seeing a river caught on fire. Be on fire. Not natural. We can just look up this, down this, go north to the river. There's yet another river that's smoldering. Smoldering. Take a time lapse. See a fire here. From 10. Breaks out. It's final day here where it's massive run. Every fire is different, but these look burning really incredibly hot. That was in the last days. To see more of the river banks showing, it's pretty incredible. The sheer size of these regions that we're currently looking at, seeing fire like this, blue as smoke, and red right here. That is burning extremely hot. It's putting out a lot of smoke. It's just north east of it. Fire, fire, 18th, 20th. Unable to fetch. Well, the 18th will 24th to the 18th are missing right now. Just the 24th. You just moves laterally across and advances south like the fires. They are very deep-seated fires, perfect positions all throughout Bolivia and Brazil, in some extremely drought-stricken areas where there was already fire present over a month ago. Being near here, still seeing fires burning out of control. Some of the most difficult to access areas, some of the most important areas in the world. Just look at the brightness on that fire line. It is glowing. There is nothing with this satellite image besides it changing green, burnt. This you can see here, but I'm not adding anything extra to make this fire out. That is how it satellite. Nothing altering fire is doing or what it's been doing. We can go back and see it transition to a different color. These fires must be burning beforehand. Fires like this that run away, that have a lot of fuel. I don't want to say property. It's it's a huge ecology, massive amount of fire and get sick. Just see all these little fires here, just these little spot fires burning. Like I said, I'm not doing anything in addition to making some of the layouts. This is actual fire that's captured. Data that's coming back, that's being received from satellite. All see that just how much burns out every direction. Not just one fire that's burning alongside the river that keeps almost dying, that keeps getting the entire river is burned, scarred, destroyed, poisoned, lightened. This is some of the most extreme fire activity on the planet right now. will connect, burn hundreds of kilometers of forest has burned over the last 2 weeks. Fires travel. They can travel just in a straight line, going forever, until they hit conditions like this and just explode in rage. It's a terrifying idea. Freshwater systems are getting hot because fire is surrounding them. The water that's moving through the area of fire is getting warmed up to that cooks all of the little river death. Talking even crocodiles. Possible crocodiles, as they are crocodilian creatures. On some of these river systems, if the fire doesn't get them, it's massive. Talking about dozens or hundreds of crocodiles at this rate. Anything we talk about when it comes to A, B, or C in Brazil or Bolivia, how close is, why is this fire happening? I've been covering these fires in Bolivia for over the last 2 months now, and they just keep re-emerging. They're in some of the hardest, most difficult fight of fire. But also wildlife. But you have a job to do, and it's very particular that always on the edge that tag wire. You don't want to have to fend it off. You protect the area, it's going to be tricky. Even though that tag wire gives you the threat, still don't want hit or struck or bit, scratched, or lacerated. There's a lot of species, a lot of insects, different diseases. And we're already asking wildland firefighters to sleep under an open sky, at best a tent, eating more. What would a fire brigade like here? What heavy machinery even allowed to bring in? Are these fires just being burned? That's the best option? Currently seeing the worst scenario. Case scenario. Fires are burning stream overnight. Travel, they have these smoke drops out. Smoke shakes out all of the spot fires that build up into another brush fire, bush fire, wildfire. Have them on. Heading up north or more Amazon region, lost color. Blue. Cloud coverage. That's an unreal fire to see. Fire right here. And it is billowing out hard. Very hard. Very disastrous amount of smoke already being let out of here. See, there is also a little area here that's swirled out, some fire. You know, animals that catch on fire also run around and catch other things on fire while they're on fire. They don't just lay down and die. A bear isn't just going to lay down and die. They're going to try to escape, and I've seen hundreds of them. Wildlife that have been trapped in wildfires, conditions, and not healthy for an environment. No matter literally what anybody says, introducing fire to a natural ecology without the means to control it is disastrous. So either these fires are being set on purpose, either for logging purposes, charcoal, all these industries from companies that are halfway across the world that don't have to give a damn about the, at least so they thought. It doesn't matter where you are, and everyone. It is what we can't duplicate for our technology. Biosphere. Heart, lung, heart, spleen, part everything. Currently, it's on fire. 121 years on record, being the lowest drought has river system drought. And we can see these fires are massive. These river systems just are little bitty channels that are just streaks across these flames. They are just engulfing everywhere, everything around it, putting out massive amounts of smoke that just doesn't stop. Again, here's the map here. Nepal, Brazil, Bolivia. This is, there's no level of drought beyond what you see in this dark red. This is extreme levels of drought. Any area here that is seeing wildfire take over is going to continue until it gets worse. Because the conditions that are driving, the forces that are driving drought conditions are not getting. So if countries downwind of like Paraguay that are get real pissed off because we're going to start seeing a lot of smoke and fire hazards that are coming from the north. Fires travel hundreds of reasonable. Paraguay, a lot of fires later this month. Either as much as next week to like Paraguay. Record amounts of fires. Top of what we're seeing. Record amounts of fires. Brazil's huge, so we want to keep it towards the Amazon side. Talk about so Yahweh. Mostly over here west. No, there are fires that are complicated. We just try to keep tighter look at all because it's easy to get lost amount of material, the amount of thinking that you have to have accomplish these regions that are home to millions of people are seeing the worst drought over 100. No one's alive that has seen drought like this before. Not seeing people that are indications forgotten. There's without a doubt a time this has happened or concrete over. Now we're seeing drought, fires. What happens in these areas? We have rivers, bodies, ash and soot into the river channels. Density and heat drives out the moisture, drives out water. Stop. Stop. So no longer feel for it, but talking about it doesn't stop. It isn't going to stop. The conditions are driving it into April for burns. And by then it'll be fire season. So what we're seeing right now isn't fire season for Bolivia. Not yet. These conditions persist for another 3 months where we can see some of the worst, terrible wildfires on the planet. This is just by going over, just over the last few weeks, not going over a month. You don't have to. Fires are still there, still burning. An impressive amount of space kicked up single day. A lot of drought. Let's see, that's Australia, that's Bolivia, some of the Amazon, some of Rodania, some of Pando, some of Beni. There are wildfires that aren't terribly large right now that are all over the place. Like I just zoom in randomly. Not randomly. I zoom in to this region by chance by scrolling the wheel, and just by it being by a river system, chances of seeing wildfire is, you see just the off occurrence that I'll scroll on area of river that I see. It's too high up, it's too much to see fire there. Smoke, there's smoke there. And just by scrolling into this area, seeing an alarming wildfire activity. Fire play? Fire and there's not fire and fire. These conditions could persist until early second quarter of next year. This is disastrous calamity with so many different. Not only are you driving out, sorry, say you. What's going on here with these massive fires that are all around Brazil? That they can alarming grow into much larger, turn into a complex of fires, end up reaching civilization. South America. It's just on the cusp of Bolivia is seeing some extreme wildfires. Countries exist. These are hundreds of kilometers of fires that are burning right now. Give it a little generous, much of a measurement. I don't count it today, the offset here is going to be burned tomorrow. The offset here is going to be burned by next week. Even though that all of the areas here might not be burned right now, just say they're earmarked. 762 square kilometers. You say that's all burned because it all is burned right now at different levels of burn. But since these fires are still going on, still churning out smoke, it's worst possible forecast that you could give Brazil, that you could give the Amazon, you could give Bolivia. What is right here? Fire right here along the river system. I don't have coordinates picked out before I start doing this. That's how strong and bright these fires are burning, is that I didn't have any knowledge of these fires. We're going into looking at these fires, and because I was just looking at drought, which I knew was strong. Nature.com article, informative. But as the location of the wildfires, I don't know them beforehand. That would be a lot more work to be able to find these wildfires beforehand, look at them, think about them, and then have to do it again later. That would rob me a lot of exploration. Because even if I were to, I think I find these fires relatively quick enough, especially using this false color urban setting. You really get a separation of the vegetation to the river systems to what is water. These are drought stricken. You start seeing more of a river bank, and you start seeing more of the bones of the river. Sort of, like I said earlier, like the Dnipro River, after that dam was destroyed by Russian forces, start seeing a lot of go back to the article because it's still a very powerful image. This is the Amazon rainforest river as it is now for miles. This is a man in a boat. How serious it is. The dozens of fires that are burning towards the river system because the river systems are all vortexes. You can have a river here. You have this force of wind that's different than the wind that's driving overhead. It's pulling in anything as the currents themselves could be raging. It's just drawing in a lot of airflow. You get some smoke, some fire that burns. It starts to get out of hand. But then it happens again 1,000 more times in the area, and the fire takes hold and is deep seated now, pushing out a lot of smoke that the smoke itself gets a thermal inversion, dropping other particulates miles away, kilometers away, causing fires to spread in a strange fashion. You'll have fires that are separated by distance. We don't see this anymore here, the smoke overhead. All that we'll see are just the two fires now that burn days, weeks, months. Water is going to make these rivers extinct. You can see it's just Just happened to zoom in on this area, and it's can't name these fires. These fires grow such alarming sizes. They're complex. You have to name them by the river system or the road. The smoke goes for hundreds of kilometers, as you can see here. All around here, fire can happen again and again and again because the fires northwest are burning and they're causing fires to travel and smoke to transit to areas that normally wouldn't. Circumstances. There's no rain, there's moisture, and all these fires drive it all out. I think my camera died for a minute. Okay, back in the frame. Didn't realize that my camera was not showing me. I don't know for how long. Okay. I'm not. This isn't automated. I'm not using bot. Using a mouse just to zoom in on areas of ecology, importance of ecology. These really just radiant rivers that just go on for just ever. That just have these bends that just are very iconic. Put it. Then you have these fires that just jump out at you. Just dangerous, large, fiery, mole, and whatever is here with thousands, billions, little ants, creatures, lizards, reptiles, birds, anything that we call home. Even antelope have an address. The impala in Africa, they don't just wander every night trying to find someplace else. No, they stay in little tight groups, which they will call their home. You go and and then the fire goes and rips it all out. Some animals will enjoy the dust. Other animals, there won't be scent, protection that there was before, shade. So it changes a lot of habitats at a pace that's too quick. The animals that have gained footholds in these areas, especially your it's especially if on both sides of the river burning. There's so much smoke that's kicked up. So many runs, so many fires. Every fire I imagine would have an associated with ignition. Okay. On that note, we will call it here. I hope this could be informative to people trying to think about these wildfires in a different way, because these fires are starting in South America, and it is staggering what we're currently seeing from satellite, which is these time lapses of there being no activity to an explosion of activity in just a few short days. With the current conditions of drought all throughout Bolivia and Brazil, there's no telling just how these fires could travel, how smoke can transit, make everything sick. I thank you for watching. Please like the video, subscribe. I try to do a daily video, at least daily, especially of wildfires, regions of concern, volcanoes as well. A lot of satellite imagery of volcanoes before. And just generally just looking at an area that can be looked at with satellite, any kind of information that can from time lapse. So mostly just fires right now, but there's also snow, there's sea ice, there's a lot of measurements that can be taken, a lot of different environments. Too extreme or perilous people to really be in to support the area, especially parts of Antarctica, parts of Brazil, just really inexplicable to modern man. We've only been on Antarctica for 100 years or so, so that entire continent is new to us as a human species. Last continent and conquer. But sorry, I digress. Just looking at Bolivia, Brazil, states, and the fires that are just concerning, especially concerning. Please be safe. Take care.